Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for our preview of the Council of State Governments annual meeting in New Orleans later this week. I'm Reed Wilson, the founder and editor of Pluribus News, and I'm excited to say that most of our team is going to be on the ground covering what is always one of the biggest public policy gatherings in the country. There are so many huge topics for legislators that will be covered this week, and I'm thrilled to have some longtime CSG veterans to tell us about what they are looking forward to. Before we jump in, I want to say thanks to our sponsor of today's event, Sandy Hook Promise. We'll have a conversation later with Mark Barden, Sandy Hook Promise's co-founder. But first, let me introduce our guest, singular at the moment. We're still waiting for one of them, California Assemblyman Mike Gipson, who joins us today from Sacramento, where the legislature is back in special session and doing all the swearing in stuff. Assemblymember Gipson has spent a decade representing his district in Los Angeles County. In Sacramento, he was the longest serving Assembly Democratic Caucus chair in state history, which I didn't know until I looked up your bio there. And he spent his time in office working on police reform, education, social justice, and housing issues. And today, he is CSG's national vice chair. So welcome, Assemblyman Gipson. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. It's great seeing you again, and thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, of course. Let's start with sort of tell us about the role that a group like CSG plays in policy making. I mean, as you and your colleagues meet for these conferences, you sort of go in search of new ideas, or how does CSG play a role in your policy making?
Well, first of all, CSG is a very nonpartisan organization, and so we have Democrats, Republicans, and independents, elected officials from all over the country coming together, sharing ideals, exchanging ideals, policy issues. And it's for me, it's been a worthwhile experience because before I became the vice chair of the national organization of CSG, I was the chair of CSG West, which represent over 13 Western states. But one of the beautiful things about this is that this organization stand ready to embrace brand new members in the legislature, whether you're Democrats, Republicans. We have a training for our new fellows. It's the Henry Toll Fellow program that I certainly recommend. Brand new legislators getting opportunity to meet with other elected officials from all over the country, learning about leadership, learning about the legislature, from a very broad standpoint. But it has been a worthwhile organization. I've found no other organization like CSG, the Council of State Governments. They prepare you, the interaction in which and the preparation that it prepares you for, and it is great. You can't find it anywhere else, right? Whether you're a brand new legislator or you've been in the legislature for many, many years and still are involved. We have some of the most incredible minds in terms of public policy I've seen that this country has to offer as part of this great organization. We have individuals who are sit on the bench, became senators, and then returned to the bench. We have a number of people doing so many incredible things, and you can learn. And those individuals are willing to share some of their pitfalls, some of their good, their bad, and their uglies with individuals, and also try to steer them the right way. One of the things I like about this organization, we can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
And I find other organizations doesn't have that kind of persona like CSG.
Yeah, yeah. We've got Wisconsin Senator Joan Ballweg joining us as well. She's here we go, just signing on there, or she will be in a minute. But let me continue as she's getting settled there. As you're talking to your colleagues around the country, what are the big issues that you're looking forward to hearing about in New Orleans this week?
Some of the challenges that our nation face, because again, just think about it. We are the legislature all over the country. And so we have assembly members and senators, or state reps and senators coming together, under one umbrella, this great organization, and looking at it, having conversations on some of the challenges we're going to face in 2025, not only here in the United States of America, but also globally. I mean, we are in two wars, so to speak, right, in this country. And where the direction we should be going in. And then also we have a new administration coming in, right? And trying to figure out this new administration, the impacts it's going to have on our country, whether it's going to be an adverse effect on our democracy or not. We don't know that until he's sworn in, and see how. I'm hoping that we can reach across the aisle. And one of the things about CSG that I want to make mention of, again, reaching out, having conversation, meaningful conversations, regardless that you are a D on R or an I. It's everyone having conversations together and being in a room and talking about policy. And we realize that one situation doesn't fit every particular state. That California is different from, Utah. And I understand that, and we understand that going in. But there's so much that we can have conversation about. There's so much, I think, that bring us together than separate us.
Mm-hmm. Wait, go a little deeper on that, because I'm always interested at CSG or NCSL or any of these events. I mean, I remember doing a panel with you in Honolulu, I think it was, which was a decent place to be in December.
Right.
And it was that sort of bipartisan Democrats and Republicans talking together. How do you foster that? How do you get past the? I mean, look, we just came through a hugely divisive election, right? How do you foster that sort of atmosphere of getting along regardless of the letter that comes after your name?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. When I was a CSG West chair, we can do a chair circle or chair's topic. And in 2023, I chose gun violence in America. And we had a very robust conversation with Republicans. We all want safer communities. We all want to make sure that, that people can be able to kids can play in their front yard without a fear of gun violence, or walk to the store, or not being carjacked. We all want safer communities. But I think we have different views. So we try to find those commonalities, the common ground that we can have very important conversation about. Again, not every piece of policy fit your particular state. But I think we all can come to agreement when it comes down to gun violence is something that we must address in this country, in our states. And so that's why I take a very proactive approach in California, because we have proliferation of illegal guns. We have a proliferation of people who seek to hurt people with these guns, and these people who should not have guns because they have a felony on their record, something of that nature, or a prohibited person. So we can come together around, should a person walk in a store, and even though they do a background, should they get 10 guns or 10 or 100 rifles at one time if they're not, going to doing, shooting for deer or something like that, right? It's those kinds of conversations that we can wrap our minds around, find that common ground, even when it comes down to healthcare, right? We should have healthcare. And those are conversations that I've been having with my colleagues across the aisle, and they have been very, very fruitful.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. We have Wisconsin Senator Joan Ballweg in the room here, although she hasn't logged in yet. So, Senator, whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear from you as well. Assemblyman, when we last talked, California's budget was in a pretty good place, and I mean, I think you and I are old enough to have seen it in the bad place, and now it feels like the tide is turning again. California faces at least a $2 billion budget deficit in the coming year, and I guess that number is going to grow. Are we back to the bad times, the bad sort of budget times?
Well, I think last year was the bad budget times because we had a budget deficit that was very large. This year, I do believe we will be able to balance our budget each year, right? And I think that if we stick to a 2 or 3 year $1 billion budget shortfall, budget deficit, I believe we will be able to do that, and do that in a way that we're not going to have to cut back vital services to Californians. Because again, at a time, it's still very difficult across the country. Groceries are still extremely high, gasoline, and you just name it. And so people are not turning the corner like everyone else is, and we don't want to leave anyone behind. So therefore, we will be able to balance our budget. We will be able to do this, I certainly believe, without having to cut any vital services that Californians are, enjoying today.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, a $2 billion budget deficit in a state with a $300 billion budget is much different than it would be in any other state, right? But when you're talking to colleagues from across the country, is there any sort of worry that the boom years of the pandemic, or post-pandemic sort of finance and revenue structure is over?
No, I don't think so. I think that again, we have a very great budget chair, and my colleague Jesse Gabriel, and he's surrounded with great minds, those who've been working on the budget for many many years. The governor's office has very seasoned veterans as well in both houses, and so it's a collaboration. We may not be able to deliver what we've had in the past to our districts, but vital services will continue. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we want to make sure, that the budget is not balanced on the backs of the most vulnerable people in our community, in the state of California, and that we can continue to maintain moving forward with homelessness still a priority for the state of California, making sure we do everything we can to drive down gasoline prices, making sure that we can still put food on our table, roof over people's heads, and also still provide housing, which continuously is one of our top priorities. We're still dealing with homelessness. And so we are, whether it's the city of Los Angeles or San Francisco or you name it, we're aggressively trying to make sure that we deal with the shortage of homes in our state. And we're doing this from a very aggressive position. And we're doing this in collaboration with our governor and both branches of leadership here in this house.
As I look at the list of panels that CSG is gonna hold and talk about, it is impossible to miss the constant focus on artificial
Sen Ballweg?
And this is we've got a little technical problem here while we get Senator Ballweg in the room. But I noticed that at CSG there are a number of AI focused panels. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what you're hearing from colleagues across the country in terms of how legislators are thinking about AI and frankly, why is it so important?
Well, we're still dealing with AI here in California. And it's again, just trying to making sure that that AI is a great technology, and it can be used in a very abusive way. And I think it's our challenge is making sure that it's not abused and it's not taken advantage of when it comes down to people. And quite frankly, if you talk to the movie studios, that it doesn't replace people. Right, it doesn't replace the actors and the actresses who have learned the craft, who have made a way of living with this particular craft, and also making sure their intellectual rights are not being taken advantage of, and that people can still, create a contract and still be able to go and act and perform and provide the kind of quality movies and screenings and theater that we're accustomed to having. And so also making sure that technology, as robust as it is, doesn't replace people. And that's one of the biggest rights. And also someone who is deceased, utilizing their likeness, but not providing any royalties or any benefits to the heirs or to their estate. We want to make sure that those kinds of things people are not being taken advantage of because of the technology. There is a place in our world for artificial intelligence, and we just need to make sure that we have set some significant guardrails so that people are not taken advantage of.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. It actually looks like we've got Senator Ballweg here. Senator, how are you? Senator, can you hear me? No, we're still waiting, I guess. Okay, no big deal. We'll get this all figured out. So, Assemblyman, there are a number of new legislators and sort of first-time CSG attendees who are in the meeting right now, listening to us, who presumably will be in New Orleans. Give them some advice. How should they best make use of their time in the next couple of days to learn as much as they can?
Well, one, I would certainly encourage, if this is your first time at the national conference, welcome. Secondly, I think that one, you should get your hands or go online and see what the different breakouts we have to offer. I think a lot of the policy discussions are pertinent to today's conversation, and then find your space. And I would certainly encourage you to sign up and go and check into some of those places. And when you see me, please stop by and say hello to me, as I'm trying to meet so many people from all over the United States coming to this great conference. But also take lots of notes. Take your business cards, I would certainly suggest. And again, let's not get hung up so much on who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, right? CSG's tent is large, and it's inclusive of everyone. And you will find so many people with like-minded ideals, having great opportunity to meet people from across the aisle, but also across other states as well, and exchange and network. I'm still very close with people who I went to the Western Leadership Academy with in 2016, graduate. I'm still in contact, and my colleagues then are doing some amazing things in their particular prospective states. And so I invite you to get a chance to really network and really know people, because everyone is important that's coming to CSG, to this national conference. But as soon as we can, put that title down and just meet people right where they are, you will find an array of people doing some extraordinary and amazing things in their own right, in their own state.
Gotcha. All right. Senator Ballweg, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, folks, let me introduce Senator Joan Ballweg. She's served in the Wisconsin legislature since 2005, where she represents Richland, Sauk, and Columbia counties. Before taking office, she was an educator, and last session, she chaired the Agriculture and Tourism committees. In 2020, she served as the national chair of the Council of State Governments. So, Senator, I'll put the same question to you. For so many of the first-time attendees at CSG, what advice would you give them? How do you make the most of this conference?
Certainly, and thank you for asking me to be part of this. I did listen to most of your conversation with Assemblyman Gipson. I was on the wrong link, but anyway, so we're good now. So everything that the Assemblyman was talking about is good background as to how to really make any CSG conference, whether it's a regional one or a national one, to get the most out of it. You may be attending this conference on the taxpayer's dime, and so they're expecting you to be working while you're there, and that's exactly what this conference does. It provides you with many different opportunities to network with other legislators and other policymakers from around the nation. And the interesting thing about the Council of State Governments is a 3-branch organization. So you have the opportunity to speak with judges and district attorneys and secretaries of state and agency heads that are coming to this conference, many of them as panelists, some of them as just members who want to find something out and be able to connect with their colleagues. I find in many discussions I have in my state, when I'm making presentations, talking to my colleagues, there are many things that I can give as examples that I've heard about from being at CSG conferences, both on a regional basis as well as the national basis. New Orleans is going to be an awesome place to be. I'm really looking forward to getting out to the World War II Museum. I was there a few years ago, and I'm looking forward to getting back there again. But as Assemblyman Gipson said, please participate in those breakouts, in those panel discussions. CSG works really hard to find out what it is that you really need to know about right now on a national basis, bringing together industry folks as well as legislators and policymakers talking about just about anything that you would want to learn about. We're going to hear from and we're going to meet the newest 40 under 40 folks, our Toll Fellows. It's a really exciting program. Many of us that have been in the legislature for a while have had an opportunity to go through some of the regional leadership trainings, just like the Assemblyman. I did that too back in 2007. The Midwest program is called Build, and it is I think it's the original of the leadership conferences, and it is a real big stepping off point to have a better understanding of what your legislative duties are and what the variety of things are, even in your own region, and then to go out into the national conference, just see what the bigger picture is when it comes to how legislatures work very differently around the nation. And don't forget some of those our Canadian brothers and sisters that come down also. They really like their type of legislatures, their parliaments, and they're very happy to explain why that's a better way of doing things than what we do.
Yeah, I can imagine. The Canadian folks are always fun to meet as well. So let me ask you a question that I asked Assemblyman Gipson earlier. What are the biggest issues that you're looking forward to hearing about and learning about this week?
Well, I'm going to be on a panel with a industry representative regarding EVs. And one of the things that I'm going to bring to the panel I'm going to be on is just what Wisconsin has done with the Volkswagen money, with the bipartisan infrastructure money, and how we are going to use that and not make it all public, but access and do public-private partnerships, and how we came to those conclusions here in Wisconsin. Everything that is coming forward at a CSG conference is always of interest. I think one of the things that the representative mentioned is take a look at what is actually on the agenda, and there's always things that are competing. I know every time I go to one of these conferences, I wish I could be in more than one place at once. So hopefully there's a couple other folks from your state or folks that you work with regularly that you can divide and conquer, so that you can get together either on the plane ride home or back in your particular states and share some of the information that you gleaned from the conference. And the other thing that I'd mention that the Assemblyman mentioned is you're not going to see in any of the information about who the attendees are. You'll see their titles or maybe what administrative purpose they are, or what industry they're representing, but you're not going to see an R or a D behind anybody's name. And it is, I think that's just one of the benefits of the Council of State Governments. We don't have any breakouts for political parties. We're asking people just to work together as people, share ideas without having that particular badge as something that may be putting someone off. And so I think that's one of the greatest things that we see in the Council of State Governments organization. We're all working together as legislators for the benefit of our communities.
Mm-hmm. Let me wrap up here by asking you both, in my years covering the states, it seemed to me that lawmakers these days are taking on new and bigger issues. And basically, it seems like you all have decided that Congress doesn't know what it's doing, and so you have to. Have you had an evolution in your thinking, or do you feel sort of more empowered than you did in the past? Let me start with you, Assemblyman Gipson.
Well, certainly I feel more empowered than I have in the past. And you're right. I think that one, you can look, you can look at CSG and see how we work together. And the senator hit the nail on the head. You don't know unless you ask someone, which I hope you wouldn't, whether or not they're Democrat or Republican. You just don't know. And again, that's what I think what sets us apart. That's what the beauty of this great organization, because people come with an open mind. And I want to encourage you to come with certainly an open mind, to be like a sponge, coming to absorb this information. But also I want to put a plug in for our regionals, for our regions. Please get involved in our regional structure that we have, whether it's West, South, East, whatever it is. Please get involved in those, because you will see so much greatness is taking place in our regional levels that helps us become this great national organization I'm happy to be along to.
Yeah. Senator Ballweg, what about you? Are you feeling newly empowered, given that Congress can't seem to get its act together?
Well, I think it's been that way. I think that's been that way for a while, that we know that within our own state, we can have a great effect. And when something comes down the track from the federal government, many times we have to figure out how to navigate that when it comes to grant programs, our Department of Children and Families or Health Services, or we have to work with them, to make sure that we're compliant with a lot of these federal programs. But basically, we feel that we can be ourselves when it comes to that. And just to tag off of a little bit of what the Assemblyman mentioned in getting involved in our regional organizations. The thing is that there are many partnerships between the regions. One of the ones that I look toward is our Great Lakes Legislative Caucus. And these are both the states that surround the Great Lakes in both the Midwest and the Eastern region, and the Canadian provinces that surround the Great Lakes. So there are within each of these organizations more collaborations that you can get together with to learn more things that are going to help your particular state, and how you as a region can, in this case, keep our Great Lakes healthy, or take a look at what Illinois is doing to keep those jumping carp out of Lake Michigan and out of our rivers in Wisconsin. So we do need to collaborate, and the regions are a great way to do that. The Council of State Governments National is just the next step. And like the Assemblyman, I myself started out as a regional chair and saw the value of the Council of State Governments to get more involved at the national level. And I really hope that the folks that are out there that are coming out for the first time will see that value, and really appreciate what the organization is trying to put together in this conference.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Senator Joan Ballweg of Wisconsin and Assemblymember Mike Gipson of California, thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I'll look forward to seeing you both in New Orleans.
Looking forward to it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye now.
All right, now let's turn to Mark Barden, the co-founder of Sandy Hook Promise and the sponsor of today's event. Mark, first of all, thank you for sponsoring the event today. These conferences are always bipartisan affairs. How do you see legislators talking about violence prevention across party lines?
Thank you for convening this, Reed, and yes, I echo all the sentiments from the prior conversation about. I don't need to know what your partisan stripe is, because at Sandy Hook Promise we truly are genuine and transparent about how we approach this work in a nonpartisan way. And I know it's cliche to say, oh, this should not be a partisan issue for so many issues, but truly, I mean, you have to be able to say that we all agree we want to protect our children. There's just no room for any kind of a partisanship in protecting our children and making our communities safer, making our homes safer. Those are, genuine, fundamental human interest things, and that translates to the conversations we have with legislators. And like the Assemblyman said, I don't need to know what their politics are. or what their partisan affiliation is, because we bring violence prevention programs into schools to train students how to recognize those warning signs, and the warning signs that there are always present warning signs before somebody harms themselves or others. We treat those as opportunities to get somebody connected to the help that they need before it becomes something serious or before it becomes a tragedy. And if that is not the most fundamental job of someone who is elected to protect their constituents, I mean, that's exactly what they are there to do. And we provide these trainings at no cost, and the mechanisms around how we get these trainings to more schools and to more students and how to sustain them. A lot of that we are able to work with legislators on policy initiatives that helps us reach more folks, policies that help us educate folks as to what the trainings are, policies that help us fund this work so we continue to not have to charge the districts that we serve with them. So it really sells itself, because legislators on both sides of the aisle are absolutely on board with this, as are families on both sides of the political spectrum, in red states, blue states, no matter how you identify. Again, we all want to protect our kids, and we offer a solution to do that.
Well, let's talk about that solution. So Sandy Hook Promise has been behind some model legislation called the Save Students Act. It's already passed in Ohio and Louisiana, both of which are controlled by Republicans. Tell us about the Save Students Act. What's in these bills?
So really it focuses kind of on the larger, the Safe Student Act. It provides, it's part of a menu of options that states can bring into their school districts. And those options are aligned pretty perfectly with what Sandy Hook Promise offers under the larger heading of Know the Signs programs and trainings for students. So we teach them how to recognize those warning signs, and then give them the tools how to connect somebody to a trusted adult who can get the appropriate services or response to that person. But we include in this model legislation is a focus on social inclusion, which is addressing, especially chronic sustained social isolation, which we have learned can lead to more serious things, and teaching them the difference between something that could be at risk to between the difference between that and healthy alone time. We place a large emphasis on suicide awareness training, suicide prevention training, how to recognize those warning signs either in one's self or in a peer, and again, the tools with which to connect somebody to the help that they need, either through talking to a trusted adult or using our anonymous reporting system, where they can connect with a counselor at any time of the day or night, a trained professional who can provide those services and get help to where it's needed. We place an emphasis on student leadership through our youth advisory board or our Promise Leaders program, and through our Save Promise clubs in schools, all of which fosters student leadership and engagement and empowerment of the students themselves, rather than this being done to them by their administrators or their teachers, but the students actually are empowered to breathe life into this curriculum and into these programs. And the result is that the students have agency now, and they really do take it seriously, and they move the curriculum forward. And then, again, access to the anonymous reporting system, where students can connect with trained professionals at any time of the day or night with whatever it may be. During the quarantine, our crisis counselors were talking to students, young people, 13-year-olds, in the middle of the night, where home was not the safe place for them. And they would talk to these young people for over an hour just to kind of calm them and soothe them. The anonymous reporting system that Sandy Hook Promise offers is a wonderful program. And we have data that has saved thousands of lives. And I don't want to go too far. I know we're running late, so I don't want to go into all of that, but there's so much.
Well, the good news is we get to revisit this and talk about some of that data, and I really want to hear about it. When we reconvene on Monday, December 9th, we're going to come back and recap the Council of State Government meeting and talk about what we learned, including about violence prevention and things like that. So Mark Barden,
Awesome.
co-founder of Sandy Hook Promise, thank you so much for being with us today. You'll be back with us on Monday, December 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I hope all of you will as well. But until then, I hope everybody who's going to the conference has a fantastic one, and I hope everybody else has a great week. So thanks so much, Mark. We'll talk to you again shortly.
Thank you. Thanks so much.